Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashodandana Brajajanarandana Yamuna Tiravanachari.
Just to read the English translation, Krishna is the lover of Radha. He described many endless pastimes and the words of Vrindavan. He is the lover of the power of many kinds of life, the holder of the great world named Bhagavatam, the beloved son of the Hungry Savior, the delighter of the inhabitants of Raj, and what is in the forest and one and one to the river of Vrindavan. For business purposes, Bhagavad and his wife and family moved to Allahabad, and it was there in 1932 that he received initiation and became a disciple of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati. The story of the next 30 years of his life in India is the story of a single burning desire to reach Krishna consciousness worldwide as the spiritual monster involved in it. Otherwise, family responsibilities and its reaching of a simple conflict is likely to produce at home, but he had the idea of working to spread Krishna consciousness. Even when Adai attempted to hold gatherings in their home and speaking Bhagavad Gita, she preferred to stay upstairs drinking tea. Still, despite her obstinacy, Adai remained patient and tried to include her. As a pharmaceutical salesman, Adai devoted traveling by rail, especially in northern India. He thought that if he could become wealthy, he could then use some money for propagating the mission of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati, and this thought encouraged him in his business. Adai was made to travel with the spiritual master after seeing often, but whenever possible, he tried to time a business trip to Calcutta, and the spiritual master was also there. Thus, over the next 4 years, he managed to see a spiritual master about a dozen times. Although she had Bhaktivedanta Saraswati was so strong in argument against other philosophies, even his own disciples were cautious about approaching him as he was sitting alone. And although Adai's contact with him was quite limited, still, she had Bhaktivedanta would always speak behind him. Prabhupada was later recorded. Sometimes my godbrothers were criticized because I would talk over feeling with him, and they would quote this image saying, "Fool touching that angels give effect." I would think, "Fool? Well, maybe, but that is the way I am." And the Guru Maharaj is always very, very affectionate to me. In 1935, on the occasion of Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati's 62nd birthday, Adai submitted a poetry essay to each of his godbrothers in one day. The writings were well received and consequently published in the Bhagavatam magazine and Harmonist. One of his godbrothers informed me that Adai is Adai, the learned poet. Adai, however, the glory of his first published writing came in the poem which Bhaktivedanta Saraswati gave him pleasure. One stanza specifically made Srimad Bhaktivedanta so happy that he made a point of showing it to all his guests. Absolutely sentient, almost blue, in personal harmony has moved. Somehow, in this simple booklet, I might have captured the essence of his spiritual master's preaching against impersonalist philosophies. And Srila Bhaktivedanta took it as an indication. How? Well, I with the 90s Gurudev. Srila Bhaktivedanta also found Abhai's essay pleasing, and he showed it to some of his confidential devotees. Whatever he writes in the script of the editor of the Harmonies, publish it. Srila Bhaktivedanta Ji.
Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
First canto, chapter 5, text 13.
Ato Maha Mogadrik Ato Mahabhaga Bhavan Amogadrik Shuchishrava Satyarato Dritavrata Shuchishrava Satyarato Dritavrata Urukrama Kishya Shila Bandha Muktaye Urukrama Shila Bandha Muktaye Madina Anusmara Tad Vicheshtitam Ato Mahabhaga Bhavan Amogadrik Shuchi Srava Satyavratrato Dritavrata Samadhina Anusmara Tad Vicheshtitam Ato Mahabhaga Bhavan Amogadrik Shuchi Shrava Satyarato Dritavrata Urukrama Shakila Bandha Muktaye Samadhina Anusmara Tad Vicheshtitam Ato Mahabhaga Bhavan Amogadrik Suchi Shrava Satyarato Dritavrata Urukrama Shakila Bandha Muktaye Samadhina Anusmara Tad Vicheshtitam Ato Mahabhaga Bhavan Amogadrik Suchi Shrava Satyarato Dritavrata Urukramasya Khila Bandha Muktaye Samadhina Anusmara Tad Vicheshtitam Ato Mahabhaga Bhavanamogdrik Shruchi Shrava Satya Rato Drita Vrata Guru Kramasya Kila Bandha Muktaye Samadhina Nusmarata Dvicheshtitam.
Word for word. So, therefore,
Mahabhaga, highly fortunate. Bhavan, Dasa, Amoghadrik, the perfect seer. Suchi, spotless. Shrava, famous. Satyarata, having taken the vow of truthfulness. Vitavrata, fixed in spiritual qualities. Kramasya, of the world, spiritual activities. Universal. Kanda, bondage. Muktaye, for liberation from. Samadhina, by trance. Think repeatedly and describe them. Tad Vicheshtitam, various pastimes of the Lord.
Of the accident of vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness. And thus you can think of the pastime of the Lord in trance, the liberation of the people in general, and all material bondage. Oh, the accident.
O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless.
You're firm in vow
You're firm in vow
and situated in truthfulness.
and situated in truthfulness.
And thus you can think
And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance,
for the liberation of the people
for the liberation of the people in general
from all material bondage.
from all material bondage.
People in general have a taste for literature by instinct. They want to hear and read from the authorities something about the unknown. But their taste is exploited by unfortunate literatures, which are full of subject matter and satisfaction of the material senses. Such literatures contain different kinds of mundane poems and philosophical speculations, more or less under the influence of Maya, ending in sense gratification. These literatures, although worthless in the true sense of the term, are variously decorated to attract the attention of the less intelligent men. Thus, the attractive living entities are more and more entangled in material bondage, without hope for liberation for thousands and thousands of generations. Sri Narada, being the best amongst the bystanders, is compassionate towards such unfortunate victims of worthless literatures, and thus he advises Sri Vyasadeva to compose transcendental literature, which is not only attractive, but can also actually bring liberation from all kinds of bondage. Sri Vyasadeva or his representatives are qualified because they are rightly trained to see things in true perspective. Sri Vyasadeva and his representatives are pure in thought due to their spiritual enlightenment, fixed in their vows due to their devotional service, and determined to deliver fallen souls rotting in material activities. The fallen souls are very eager to receive novel information every day, and the transcendentalists, like Vyasadeva, on the larger, to supply such eager people in general with amazing news in the spiritual world. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the material world is only part of the whole creation, and that this earth is only a fragment of the whole material world. There are thousands and thousands of literary men all over the world, and they have created many, many thousands of literary works for the information of the people in general for thousands and thousands of years. Unfortunately, none of them have brought peace and tranquility on the earth. This is due to a spiritual vacuum in those literatures. Therefore, the Vedic literatures, especially the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, are specifically recommended to supreme humanity to bring about the desired effect of liberation from the kinds of material civilization, which is eating the vital part of human energy. The Bhagavad Gita is the spoken message of the Lord himself, recorded by Vyasadeva, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is the transcendental narration of the activities of the same Lord Krishna, which alone can satisfy the hankering desires of the living being for eternal peace and liberation from miseries. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is meant for all the living beings all over the universe, the total liberation from all kinds of material bondage. Such transcendental narrations of the pastimes of the Lord can be described only by liberated souls like Vyasadeva and his bona fide representatives, who are completely merged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Owing to such devotees, with the pastimes of the Lord and their transcendental nature, become automatically manifest by dint of devotional service. No one else can either know or describe the acts of the Lord, even if they speculate on the subject for many, many years. The descriptions of the Bhagavatam are so precise and accurate that whatever has been predicted in this great literature about 5,000 years ago is now exactly happening. Therefore, the vision of the author comprehends past, present, and future. Such liberated persons as Vyasadeva are perfect, not only by the power of vision and wisdom, but also in oral perception, in thinking, feeling, and all other sense activities. The liberated person possesses perfect senses, and with perfect senses only, one can serve the sense proprietor, Rishikesh, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is a perfect description of the all-perfect personality of Godhead, and the all-perfect personality, Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas. Krishna, So welcome everybody to my presentation on this slope of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not the first time that I've been sat up here trying to give class, and what I've learned is that you only have one chance to make the point clearly and understandable. When Srila Prabhupada said, "Don't think this won't happen to you," what was he perhaps referring to the task of giving class? Yeah, he actually wasn't, but that was just a sort of attempt at a joke by me. So what he actually was referring to when he said, "Don't this won't happen to you," he was very advanced in his age and feeling that he was going to pass on it in the imminent future. So he said, don't think this won't happen to you, to one of his disciples. The warning that nobody can escape the process of aging in this world. So what can I do for you, really? I haven't really got some deep spiritual realizations, as many people who sit up here. All I can do is have faith in what is authorized and point the class in the direction of what is authorized, i.e. the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, an exam that a London black taxi cab driver has to take before he gets qualified to his badge and take passengers. This exam is called the Knowledge, and it's renowned as a very sort of a very testing examination. Pass the Knowledge. The driver has to know every street name within a 6-mile radius of Charing Cross station in central London. There's about 35,000 streets to memorise, and so I was thinking of comparing the knowledge to a sort of the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam that one should have before he's really qualified to give class. But all I can do is just proceed one step at a time. So has anybody here ever worked in a factory? No. I have myself, and it's generally renowned as being a sort of pretty grim occupation, working in a factory, doing the same thing day in, day out, and there's so it's not renowned as the best occupation, being a factory worker. So I was thinking of comparing that to the process of factory farming. Imagine if being in a factory trying to do a daily work is grim. Imagine how many million times grimmer it must be to be a sort of to be in a factory farm, especially sort of having to be an animal in a factory farm. It would be like something from a hellish planet. So I was thinking about when I was at school, and I was about 13 years old, and we're doing this play called Macbeth by Shakespeare. And the reason that I mentioned this play by Shakespeare is quite relevant to this discussion, actually. What I'd like to bring to the attention of the people attending this class is in Macbeth. The leading character and his wife, Lady Macbeth, they decide to commit a murder for the sake of their political advancement. And the murder seems to go off without any massive hitches. But later, Lady Macbeth starts complaining that there's a spot appeared on her hand, a blood red spot, which sort of shows that she's committed a murder. Her hands are stained with red. She has this line in the poem called "Out, out, damned spot." As long as that spot's there, it stains her hand with red. Everybody can see that she's committed something else or other. Or else how would a hand be stained with red? So what I'd like to take from that is that she's obviously suffered a karmic reaction to a crime of committing a murder, and that karma is not something new. It was obviously a law in Shakespeare's time, and for many decades before that, for many millennia before that. So from that we can sort of make the deduction that God's laws are eternal and unchangeable. There's a term Sanatana Dharma, and Sanatana Dharma refers to that which is unchangeable and that which is unchangeable and that which is eternal. So the amount of time that one takes to blink an eye isn't very long. It's absolutely a microscopic amount of time. But by the amount of this time's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success. So I'd like to do a little sort of try to sort of bring the class's attention to a few Sanskrit terms. The first one's kutinata. Kutinati means fault finding. This is fault finding is due to the heart being materially contaminated. Devotees are expected to refrain from kutinata. There's also jiva himsa. Jiva himsa means envy of other living beings. Envy means stopping the preaching of Krishna conscious activities. There's also a neti argument. Yeah, it's quite a out of an ordinary term is neti arguments. A neti argument is a not this, not that argument. There's also the matter of the logic of half a hen. The half a hen logic is described in Sanskrit as being Ada Kukruti Nyaya, the logic of half a hen. So this logic of half a hen, it comes from a farmer who had a hen that laid a golden egg. So obviously he was very taken with this golden egg, but he thought when I have to feed the hen, it's costing me money to feed the hen. I'd be better off if I didn't have to feed the hen. So he chopped the hen in half. That's where the term half hen logic comes from. There's also a term Marketa Vairagya. Marketa Vairagya means monkey renunciation. Monkey renunciation is a term that's used to describe, say, a Babaji who has relationships with women. And the term Marketa Vairagya means monkey renunciation. You see that the monkeys, they also keep relationships with the opposite sex, and they also go around naked. So Marketa Vairagya is a term used to describe someone who's having relationships with the opposite sex. There's a Zen koan that says, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. So from analysing this statement, we can see that the activities of a devotee won't change much before enlightenment and after enlightenment. It's the same activities day in, day out, but the enlightenment is the important part of the process. So Srila Prabhupada once made this statement about Prakrita Sahajis. They are not serious in wanting to understand spiritual life. So he's made this statement to describe the activities of the Prakrita Sahajis. Prakrita Sahajis are a sort of the sect that tries to imitate the higher levels of Krishna consciousness without actually being situated in the level of consciousness that they're trying to imitate. And but I thought the statement, "They are not serious in wanting to understand spiritual life," could be taken as a broad sweeping statement about the failings of people who are just stranded in material life, really rotting in material existence. They're not serious in wanting to understand spiritual life. There's definitely a vacuum in their lives. Becoming really fixed in material life and trying to understand the process of material life, material existence. They're really sort of wasting the efforts and the opportunities. So Srila Prabhupada also made this statement: the most important science to know is the science of getting out of the clutches of material existence. Anyone who knows this science must be considered the greatest learned person. So when he refers to the clutches of material existence, I think he must mean the process of birth, death, old age, and birth, death, old age, and disease. Thank you. So we can see that despite there's been certain advances in material science, but material existence is always going to be carried out under the parameters of birth, death, old age, disease. Birth, death, old age, and disease. Even though the scientists may make a little advancement here and there, even though the material scientists are making this advancement here and there, for example, they may cure a disease, but that cure is only really available to those people who can afford it. People who can't afford it, they're still under the sort of bound by birth, death, old age, and disease. So that anybody who knows the science of getting out of the clutches of material existence must be considered the greatest learned person. There's also the analogy of the broken serpent's teeth. This analogy is used to illustrate the point that by practicing Krishna consciousness, the senses are brought under the yogi's control. When the senses are engaged in the Lord's service, ordinary snake's teeth are poisonous, venomous, but when one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, the snake's teeth are broken. The entire world is like a replica of Vaikuntha for the devotee, as he has no anxiety. So this chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam is called Narada's Instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam. So I prepared a little piece about Narada Muni, because Narada is Narada Muni. Narada Muni is one of the most prominent sages in the Vedic literature. He travels throughout the universe, awakening love for the Lord. He even visits the hellish planets. Narada Muni is one of the 12 Mahajanas, or great authorities on eternal truth. These 12 Mahajanas are Brahma, Lord Shiva, Narada Muni, Manu, the 4 Kumaras, Prahlad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, Yamaraj, Bhishma, Janaka, Sukadev Goswami, and Kapila Muni. So these are all very highly elevated spiritual personages, and Narada Muni is amongst the body of these 12 Mahajanas. Narada Muni is known in ISKCON as the eternal spiritual spaceman. He is described in Vedic literature as a transcendental mystic who received from Krishna the ability to traverse the cosmos, delivering the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to sincere souls and instigating advancement on the spiritual path. Narada Muni is a spiritual master to Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, Sri Vyasadeva, and Valmiki. As a preeminent representative of God, Narada Muni is often considered the original spiritual master, one of the dearmost devotees of Lord Krishna. Dear to both demigods and demons, he is a transcendental singer and musician who chants the Lord's name constantly and purifies the whole universe. Narada Muni plays on his instrument to glorify the transcendental activities of the Lord and to give relief to all miserable living entities of the universe. It is also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse 26. The chapter is entitled The Opulence of the Absolute. And the part where Narada Muni is mentioned is in verse 26. Of the sages among the demigods, I am Narada. So the purport to this is that amongst the demigods, they, the people in India, also worship Narada Muni, who is considered the greatest devotee in the universe. Thus, he is a representation of Krishna as a devotee. Narada Muni also plays a part in Krishna's birth and boyhood activities. By the curse of Narada Muni, Nalakuvara and Manigriva became twin Arjuna trees and remained in the courtyard of Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj. So one of the points that Narada Muni is trying to make in this chapter is that no literature is complete without a description of Krishna's glories in it. There's also a section later in this chapter where Narada Muni tells Vyasadeva about his previous incarnation. When he first received the spiritual teachings that became a central core of his beliefs. The story that Narada Muni tells Vyasadeva in Canto 1, Chapter 5 illustrates the point that devotional service is so potent that it is the best way to make spiritual advancement. So I'll try to say something about this specific text 13. So there's several significant words in this sloka. Amoga. So Ato Maha Bhaga Bhavan Amoga Drik. Amoga means without any sin. Moga means sinful. Amoga means without any sin. As long as one is living a sinful life, he cannot have clear vision. He is in a diseased condition. Suchi Shrava. Shrava means to hear, to give oral reception. Suchi means pure. It is also used in the temple to denote something that is clean. Suchi and Muchi. Muchi means dirty. Suchi Shrava, who has received knowledge by oral reception, in pure heart or from the pure source. These are the qualifications of a person who can actually do some benefit in the human society, not in theory but practically. The person must have the qualifications. One has to hear from the pure source what is actually beneficial to human society. Satya Rata. Satya means truth. Rata means engaged. One who is engaged in the matter of the absolute truth, not relative truth. Vrita Vrata. Vrata means vow. Vrita means one who has taken a vow that I shall do this. These are the qualifications. When the qualifications are there, Narada Muni entrusts Vyasadeva that you can liberate all the conditioned souls. Urikramasya. Uri means uncommon, also great. Krama means activities. Urikrama means Krishna. By his activities are uncommon. For example, many times in his childhood, he displayed uncommon activities, lifting Govardhan hill, dancing on the heads of Kaliya. Samadina is also mentioned in the sloka and is described as by trance. This word samadina has as its root samadhi, which means a highly evolved meditation. It is the ultimate state of bliss, lying at the end of the eight limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. These 8 stages are yama, niyama, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Samadhi means to fix your mind on Krishna, to always think of Krishna and never forget him. The mind should always be absorbed in Krishna, thought without any deviation. Anyone who is chanting Hare Krishna, he is in samadhi. Anyone who is cooking for Krishna, he is in samadhi. Anyone who is working for Krishna, he is in samadhi. The activities are the same, but the consciousness is different. That is samadhi. Yoginam api sha vesham madgetanata atmana Shraddhavan bachate yomam sami yukta tamo mata. And of all the yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So I'll just read a little bit from the purport to that verse of the Bhagavad Gita, if I may. It's 647. So try to find the verse. We should have done this before the class, and I wouldn't have to do this now. But so Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 47. So Prabhupada makes the point that the culmination of all kinds of yoga practice lies in bhakti yoga. All the yogis are but means to come to the point of bhakti in bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. All of the yogis are progressions towards the destination of bhakti yoga. It is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of bhakti yoga to become well situated according to the Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Shama Sundara, who is as beautifully coloured as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels, and whose body is flower garlanded. Illuminating all sides is his gorgeous lustre, which is called the Brahma Jyoti. He incarnates his different forms, such as Rama, Nrsimha, Vahara, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he descends like a human being, as the son of Mother Yasoda, and he is known as Krishna, Govinda, and Vasudeva. He is a perfect child, husband, friend, and master, and he is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. So thank you for your attention. I'd like to end the class there. If anyone has any comments or has any questions for me to answer, I'll try to do my best to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you for the class. There's an online comment that came in. I will read out the comment. It says, thank you for this lesson. Your comment, wasted effort and opportunity, feels like a fraud to the chest. There's no time for ambivalence and sloth. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for your comment, Eamon. Yeah, it's very easy to sort of get a spiritual to gain a step on this path to spirituality, and like I was saying, it can happen in the flicker of an eyelid, or just a moment's association with a pure devotee can sort of burn the husk of material existence to cinders in a moment. But it's also very, very fortunate to have to get a spiritual consciousness, and it is very far superior to material consciousness. So the material consciousness sort of is just grafting after trying to grab the things that Maya seems to serve us, sort of fame, fortune, all the sort of all the features of the material existence. But although these gifts, although these things can sort of seem very alluring on closer examination, they're sort of worthless. So you can see that I haven't sort of got the consciousness to sort of make a clear comment back to you, Eamon, but thank you for your comment anyway. Thank you.
The purport kind of compares the mundane literature and the transcendental. Just wondering if you would mind to kind of say a few things about the different effect that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting prologue, isn't it? So, especially when you think about the time it was written and what ratio was in his journey towards America. I describe it as a very mature piece of writing, really. It's sort of ever fresh as this piece of writing. It really is composed due to the mercy of Krishna. He says there are thousands and thousands of literary men all over the world, and they have created many, many thousands of literary works for the information of the people in general for thousands and thousands of years. Unfortunately, none of them have brought peace and tranquility on the earth. This is due to a spiritual vacuum in those literatures. Well, by personal experience, we can see that this is a very pertinent statement. That none of these sort of these great literary men have actually brought peace and tranquility to the earth. It's only the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, which are literatures in the Vedic version, which can actually do this. Also, such literatures contain different kinds of mundane poems and philosophical speculations, more or less under the influence of Maya, ending in sense gratification. These literatures, although worthless in the true sense of the term, are variously decorated to attract the attention of the less intelligent men. Thus, the attractive living entities are more and more entangled in material bondage, without hope of liberation for thousands of generations. So the point that Prabhupada is making, amongst many others here, is that basically is that when he says that more or less under the influence of Maya, well, Maya is also known as the illusory energy of the Lord. It refers to that which is not. So under the influence of Maya, people are taking the impermanent to be permanent. It's only the things that are under the influence of the spiritual potency that are permanent. All these things under the influence of Maya, they have a beginning and end, whereas those under the influence of the spiritual potency, these are eternal and unchanging. So these literatures, although worthless in the true sense of the term, this is because they haven't got any sort of they haven't really got any spiritual leaning, any spiritual worth. They'll stay for some time, but they won't really endure. Although Shakespeare was a great writer, his literature is, I'm getting it sort of really Yeah, so one point is that you can read Shakespeare for all your life, but at the end of your life, you'll still be you'll still be confused as to your spiritual identity. In the Bhagavad Gita, we get the information that our real self is the soul. The soul's eternal, it's unchanging. And when this material body is finished, the soul carries one to the next body. So we're caught up in the process of reincarnation. But if we get information from the spiritual perspective, we can even overcome reincarnation and gain a permanent life that's not sort of under the laws of nature, that's not under the laws of material existence. It's not sort of bound up by birth, death, old age, and disease. So obviously, this is far superior to a body that needs replacing every 100 years at the most. And also that there's also a lot of danger in taking this material body to be the all in all, because the danger is that you may lose the human form of life in your next incarnation. You may have to go down to the animal kingdom and take your next birth amongst the animal species. So I don't really think I can speak very much more on this subject. So does anybody have any more comments or questions? Okay, Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam, Ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Shri Kodnitai, Mayapur Sashay Ki Jai.
This Jayananda Prabhu ki
Jai.
Jai.